Hey there, folks, and welcome out to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I'm 16-Bit, and I got a good show for this week because we're going to be talking about Tencent eyeing Ubisoft, Beyond Good and Evil 2 gets a new lead writer, the third Sonic movie gets a release date, plus more. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and I'll be with you in a bit. Alright folks, we're back, and now it's time to start the show with my favorite segment, your favorite segment, everyone in the world's favorite segment. It's time for the Gaming Forecast. So let's see what's coming up between the week of August 14th to the 20th. Okay, on August 16th, you have 4 games coming out. Blossom Tale 2, The Minotaur Prince for Windows and Nintendo Switch. Roller Dome for Windows and PlayStation 4 and 5. Tribes of Midgar for Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X, and Way of the Hunter for Windows, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Then on the 18th, you have 6 games coming out. Curse to Golf for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. RPG Time, The Legend of Wright for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. Scar the Doll, releasing exclusively in Japan for Nintendo Switch. Slaycation Paradise for Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and Series X. Thymesia for Windows, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. And We Are OFK for Windows, Mac, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and 5. And then on the 19th, you have 4 games coming out. A Tale of Paper Refolded for Windows, Xbox One, and Series X. Cloudpunk for PlayStation 5. Layerland Story making its Western debut on Windows and Nintendo Switch. And Madden NFL 23 for Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Series X. And that was your gaming forecast. I don't know. Some of the stuff I've never really heard of other than like Madden. And even then, I'm actually kind of surprised like Madden is actually coming out. So now remember that these dates are subject to change. Sometimes games are added and sometimes they are pushed back to a later date. Also, if you're interested in any of the music that will be played in this episode, just remember that links are left in the description. And with that being said, let's move on to our first topic. Okay, so for our first story, we have some news coming out of Ubisoft. Of course, in recent years, things have not been looking good for them. Their sales are low, their NFTs aren't selling. Who could have seen that coming? And it appears that Tencent smells blood in the water because they're actually planning to buy more stocks in the company. Now, Tencent already owns about 5% stake in the company back in 2019. But it appears that they're actually trying, and of course, according to Reuters, they're trying to purchase more stock in the company. Now, keep in mind that I think one of the largest shareholders in the company is actually the Guillemot family, who co-founded it. But it does appear that apparently China is just trying to outdo them. And if that's the case, that's not good. Now, this brings up an interesting question of why. Why would Tencent want to buy out Ubisoft? Well, it might have to do with the fact that gaming in China right now is not doing very well. They've lost quite a lot of revenue ever since the Chinese Communist Party decided to institute new regulations on gaming. So, of course, they're going to start looking out towards Western developers and publishers to purchase. And, of course, they've already purchased a couple, including Riot Games, Turtle Rock, just to name a few. So, yeah, they're going to try to expand beyond that and try to purchase more bigger publishers, especially since you right now have Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard and Sony purchasing Bungie. In fact, I think those two coupled with this, I think is a terrible sign for the future of the industry, because it seems to me that everything is just going to be bought out by all these major names until the entire industry is homogenized between like 3 major publishers, and that's it. And that to me is not good for the health of the industry. Okay? We've seen what happens when major publishers keep buying out smaller studios. Hell, we can see it with the history of EA. There are numerous studios, great studios, that no longer exist because EA bought them all out and ran them into the ground. We're talking Origin Systems, we're talking Westwood Studios, Pandemic, all of them were great, and then EA bought them out and completely fucked them over. So if that's what's going to happen, then the industry better brace itself for a massive disaster. Probably a crash bigger than 1983, okay? Because at least with 83, that was mostly contained within the American console industry in the United States. If another crash happens because of all this shit, it's going to be more global. So anyway, with that being said, let's move on to the next topic. And lastly, we have some news coming out of Nintendo because they recently released a report, their earnings report for the Q1 of 2022. And some interesting stuff in there. First and foremost, the Switch is now at 111 million units, making it the 3rd best-selling home console of all time, right behind the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 2. In fact, it's only less than 5 million away from beating the PS4. Now, of course, I'm not sure if it'll ever actually reach the PS4's level because Sony has decided to ramp up production of that system. But in the meanwhile, it seems that the Switch has also sold 863 million units of software. So that could be games, that could be apps, whatever. That's a lot. That is just absolutely massive. Though still has not beat the DS, because the DS has sold 948 million units. So overall, the Switch is in a very comfortable spot, but I don't think Nintendo should get too comfortable. I think they really should start considering actually releasing an updated Switch, and not just, the OLED. In fact, I honestly believe that the OLED was supposed to be a new system, but they saw what was going on with Microsoft and Sony and decided against it. Now, on top of all of this, they also announced that Kirby and the Forgotten Land has topped 4 million in sales. Not just making it the fastest selling Kirby game of all time, but also the single best-selling game in the entire series. And in my opinion, it deserves it. It's an excellent game. As you saw a couple of episodes ago, I played through the entire game, and it's fantastic. And I'm honestly looking forward to seeing what else they're going to do next up. We also have updates on upcoming Nintendo titles. Of course, we were given they announced release dates for upcoming stuff such as Splatoon 3, Bayonetta 3, all that kind of good stuff. But we also got some updates on stuff that has not had a confirmed release date yet. Breath of the Wild 2 is set for spring of next year. Metroid Prime 4, of course, is to be announced. And the same thing with Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. Honestly, I wish Nintendo would just cut the crap already and just release it. The game is finished. In fact, I covered a few months ago a story where someone actually had their game unlocked because they had it pre-downloaded and it was set to unlock on a certain date. And their copy actually unlocked and they were able to play it. So it's finished. It's complete. And I'm just like, look, I get it. You didn't want to release it at the time in like April because the Ukraine-Russian war was still going on. But at this point, it's unclear when that war is going to end. So just cut the crap and release it. That's the way I see it. To quote the movie Clerks, you either shit or get off the pot. But anyway, guys, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
Hi, Game Boy. アメリカで人気抜群のアクションソフトメトロイド2を紹介しよう。 あのメトロイドがぐーんとパワーアップしてアイテム充実、敵キャラだって最高にエキサイティング。ゲームボーイソフトメトロイド2。
メトロイドおもろいど。
Alright folks, we're back, and first up in our next round of stories, we have another Ubisoft story, and this time it's about Beyond Good and Evil 2, because they've officially announced that the game has a new lead writer named Sarah Arellano. Now, I'm going to be quite frank, to me that's not actually a good sign of things, especially when you consider the fact that this game was announced all the way back in, 2008. Yeah, it's been 14 years since this game has been announced, and they're already swapping out lead writers. To me, that's not a good sign of anything. If they haven't even completed the story yet, then yeah, this thing ain't coming out until what, possibly the next decade? And even then, it probably will be delayed for another decade, and so on and so on. Folks, honestly, I think Ubisoft should just give up at this point. I mean, this is a game that I think the last time we heard anything about it was the trailer in 2018. That was 4 years ago. We haven't had anything since then. So, yeah, not a good sign at all. I mean, you know you're in trouble when your development cycle is longer than Duke Nukem Forever. Yeah, Duke Nukem Forever took 14 years to come out. We're already past on the 14th mark, and still, there's no release date for Beyond Good and Evil 2. So it's not a good sign, like, at all. It does not seem to me like this game is even close to getting ready for, like, next year or even 2 years from now. And it's a damn shame, because the original Beyond Good and Evil is still a good game. It holds up, even though it's not, like, almost 20 years old. It's still a pretty damn good game, and it deserves a sequel. But unfortunately, it seems that, Ubisoft keeps procrastinating on the entire title, and then there's the fact that basically the guy who was responsible for the series was booted out of Ubisoft because of various accusations. So it's really one of those cases where the game is a victim of circumstances within the company itself. It's not the game's fault, it's the fact that it's dealing with a lot of corporate bullshit behind the scenes. So anyway, I just hope the game eventually does actually see the light of day, but honestly, at this point, it doesn't seem like it. Anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next story. Alright, and our next story, of course, has to deal with Blizzard. As you all know, Diablo Immortal is raking in a shit ton of money, unfortunately. And of course, with that being said, you would assume that Blizzard would be perfectly fine with doing the same thing with their other IPs. Well, it seems that that ain't gonna happen. Recently, according to Bloomberg, Blizzard and NetEase had actually planned on doing another mobile game, this time for Warcraft. But it appears that after 3 years of development, the entire project fell through. According to their sources, apparently, they had a team of over 100 developers working on this game until they were completely disbanded due to disagreements over financial terms. Apparently, the game was codenamed Neptune and would have been essentially a mobile MMO set within the same universe, but in a different time period. Now, other than that, all other details are basically non-existent, but to be frank, I'm actually kind of glad it was canceled. Warcraft just isn't as good as it used to be, okay? They've completely destroyed WoW over the course of several years to the point where a lot of longtime fans have basically ditched it for Final Fantasy XIV. So I don't think releasing a mobile version of it, or at least a spin-off, would exactly help the franchise right now. But still, I'm glad to see that Blizzard did actually something sensible and decided not to go ahead with a mobile Warcraft game. But who knows, they might actually try it again. And if that happens, then, oh god, this series is deader than Cliff Bleszinski's career. Like, holy shit. It really is sad. As a longtime fan of Blizzard, it is just sad to see what Blizzard has become. It's not the company it was over 20 years ago, and unfortunately, it'll never return to that level of greatness ever again. Anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next story. Okay, this next one I actually thought was really cool. So, Analog, the company known for their FPGA consoles such as the Analog SG, the NT, and most recently the Pocket, which I'm actually really interested. But anyway, they recently added something called OpenFPGA to the Analog Pocket. It's essentially an open source FPGA framework for the system, and to really show off what it could do, they've decided to add a brand new core to it for a PDP-1 computer. Now, if you don't know what the PDP-1 is, it was a massive computer system that was came out in 1959. It was mostly sold to universities and military and such. It was very expensive for the time. Came out at like $120,000. Okay, that's over $1 million in today's money. Okay. Now, why would they add a core for this old computer? Well, because you see, the PDP-1 is very important to the history of video games because it's the exact same computer that students at MIT used to create one of the earliest video games ever made, Space War. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you can now play Space War anywhere you go. That, to me, is absolutely amazing. And I've seen some videos of it, and it is just, holy shit, they pulled it off. Like, goddamn, you guys just, like, that's what I like to see when it comes to video game preservation. Allowing people to play games that are very important to the history of video games. And this definitely is one of them. So I'm just happy to see that they've actually found a way to preserve it and allow everyone to kind of who owns an Analog Pocket to basically play it on anywhere they want. That is just really cool. By the way, and it's funny because Space War actually kind of ties in with one of my favorite hobbies, which is model railroading. Yeah, guess what? The game was actually created by the Tech Model Railroad Club of MIT, because they used to use the computers, the PDP-1, to design layouts and actually control them via computer. So it's a nice little connection there. But I'd like to see other cores kind of get on there. One I'd like to see, of course, is the IMLAC PDS-1. Now I'm sure none of you have any idea what the hell that is. It was a computer that was released in 1970. And once again, it is very important to the history of video games. Why? Because let's just say this. A genre you've probably all played and loved was invented on that computer. 1972, a bunch of students created a game called Maze War. It is the world's first-person shooter. Yeah, the first-person shooter is over 50 years old. It's weird, isn't it? But I would love to see them actually create a core based on the PDS-1 and get Maze War up and running on this thing. My God, that would be amazing. Actually, it's funny, you've actually probably all played Maze War because it was actually later on ported to home computers as Mini Maze, and then that was ported over to consoles as Faceball 2000. Yeah, if you've ever played Faceball 2000, you've essentially played a port of Maze War. So anyway, guys, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
Trust the authorities. We are in full control. You are safe. Relax. Life is good.
Beyond good and evil.
Alright folks, we're back, and first up in our last round of stories, we have some video game movie news. Oh yes, that's right. I don't know, I just think it's always interesting whenever a video game gets a movie adaptation, especially in this day and age where some are good and some are just downright terrible. But anyway, I digress. First and foremost, we now officially have a release date on the third Sonic movie. That's right, the official Twitter account put out on Twitter that the date has been set for December 20th, 2024. So you've got a little over 2 years until Sonic 3, and honestly, I'm looking forward to it. The first Sonic movie was great. Sonic 2 was fantastic. Blew away a lot of my expectations. And it was, okay, there were some parts of it that, like, lagged a bit, but overall, I thought it was a fantastic sequel. Excellent, excellent movie. And so I'm really looking forward to the third one, especially that post-credit sequence, which if you haven't seen Sonic 2 yet, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but let me tell you. Oh boy. Actually, I did a review of it a couple of months ago with the only special guest I've ever had on the show, first and only, being my sister, who saw the movie with me. So we kind of did a discussion about it. And overall, we really enjoyed it. We thought it was a great movie. So definitely looking forward to the third one. It's, you know what? Video game movies, it's very rare when Hollywood actually puts out a good video game movie. And Sonic, so far, they've done it twice. So I'm hoping that they do not screw it up with the third one. Just, look, you got something good going on with the first two movies. Just keep it up. That's all I say. Keep it up. Let the people who did the first two keep making the third one, and you'll have a solid trilogy. The other bit of video game movie news, and this one kind of surprised me, is that apparently it's of another character that has appeared in Super Smash Bros., and this time it's a character older than Sonic and even Mario. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Pac-Man is getting a movie. Yep, it was recently put out by The Hollywood Reporter that Bandai Namco and Wayfarer Studios are working together on producing a Pac-Man movie, and this time they have Chuck Williams of Lightbeam Entertainment working on the project. And if you don't know who he is, he's a producer on the first Sonic movie. So, okay, you got someone with a good track record working on another video game movie. Okay. I'm a little bit more optimistic about this one. Okay. Now, of course, that honestly begs the question: how the hell are you gonna do a Pac-Man movie? Because Pac-Man doesn't really have much of a story now, does it? My guess would be a good sort of a good template to go by. In my opinion, would actually be a Pac-Man World. It's a great game. It's the closest to a Pac-Man game has ever had to actually having a story. So I think that would be a good template to go by. But other than that, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how they pull this off. Not a lot of Namco franchises that get video game adaptations. Tekken is like the only one. Tekken's got like, let's see, there's the animated movie, the motion picture from the mid 90s, which is just batshit insane, but I kind of love it. There's the two live action movies, which aren't that good. And then there's there was that CG one that was included with the Tekken 3 on the 3DS. And now there's the next one coming up on Netflix, and it's like, my God, can you do something else? You have a whole bunch of other Namco franchises that I'm pretty sure could be turned into movies. Hell, I'm pretty sure the Tales series would actually fit perfectly as a theatrical film. But anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next topic. Okay, so this next one I actually thought was pretty neat. So recently there was an update to the Steam Client beta, and apparently it now adds Joy-Con support. Oh yeah, that now you can officially pair your Joy-Cons with Steam and actually play any games with it. Now, the thing is that it doesn't actually use the HD rumble or any of the motion detection. Basically, you can either use the one Joy-Con as a individual gamepad, or you can combine two of them as a standard Switch controller. And I actually think that's pretty neat. It's not something I would ever use because, to be quite frank, my Joy-Cons have really bad drift. Anytime I've ever tried to use them, it doesn't work at all. I switched over to the the Hori Hori Split Pad Pro, and I like that. I like that a lot, much better, mostly because I got giant man hands. But yeah, if you have a Switch Joy-Con, you'd like to use them as a controller, you can do that now. I'm hoping this means that down the line they'll update it to allow more gyroscopic aiming, because that would actually be pretty neat. If you can suddenly use this for shooters and such, hell, I would totally play, if I had working Joy-Cons, I would play Resident Evil 4 with these. Because Resident Evil 4, in my opinion, on the Wii, was fantastic. Absolutely amazing. And so I would love to kind of play a much more high resolution, better version of that with very similar controls as to the Wii version. So anyway, if you want to go check that out, it's available right now. And yeah, go see whatever games you can play with it. Okay, and with that being said, let's move on to our next story. Okay, and this last one I actually thought was pretty cool. So, Jak and Daxter. Great series on the PlayStation 2, one of the absolute best trilogies of the 6th generation, and overall just a great series in general. But we haven't heard from it in a long time, and it's had, a few HD releases over the years, but nothing too special. Well, it seems that might actually change, because it appears that a couple of fans have taken it upon themselves to try and actually port the game over to PC. Not as an emulation, but an honest-to-God port. Now, of course, this is not an easy task. You see, when Naughty Dog was first developing the game, they decided to use their own custom game development engine and programming language that they called Goal. And because of that, trying to port this thing to PC is an absolute pain in the ass to do. However, this group has been able to decompile the language and reverse engineer the entire game, the entire first game, I should say, to be ported over to the PC. Now, it's not entirely finished. They're about 80% complete. However, you can play the entire game 100% at 200% completion without any issues at all. However, there are some problems that some graphical problems that they are dealing with and they are working on. But for the most part, it is finished. That's it. It's completely playable from beginning to end. I've seen some gameplay footage, and let me tell you, it's incredible. It's amazing what they've been able to do with this. Now, as for the other games, they've already made it known that they are working on Jak 2. It's in very early stages, so it's going to take a while. They're saying at least a year. Jak 3, they said they're probably gonna get worked on that after Jak 2 is finished, and at this time they're not really sure about Jak X. But until then, we at least have a great port that we can actually play. And by the way, they are saying that basically you will need a legitimate copy of the game for PS2. So and that's not hard to find. It's not a rare game, obviously. This is a greatest hits PS2 game, by the way. All three of them, I think, were greatest hits titles. So they're really cheap, like, probably $10 for each, probably $5, I don't really know. They also do mention that this supports all retail versions of the original game. Early builds and demos have no planned support, so if you try to use one of your demo discs or whatever, it's not going to work. But other than that, you're pretty much good to go if you have the first game. And honestly, I'd say go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to their site. And anyway, guys, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this.
After being transported to a foreign world, wrongfully imprisoned, then tortured for 2 years, anyone would give up hope. Well, almost anyone.
Let's go take care of business.
This world is better left to Jack. Rated T for teen.
Alright folks, and we're back, and that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. Remember, if you liked any of the music I played throughout the episode, you can find it in the links in the description. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for listening. I'll see you next week, and remember to keep gaming.